last week on the Al Nicoletti Show. Dude, let's welcome him to the show, Gary Booth. Gary, man.
I don't do it for me. The opportunities will come if you help enough people. I make money when my agents make money. Mm-hmm. When they win, I win. So, if they're on the team, then I'm definitely going to take the time to make sure they're successful. If you have that servant leadership mindset, the opportunities will come. The things that wouldn't kill you but would make you less money, those are the ones that are going to wipe away all your profit. My goal is to be prepared as much as possible to take advantage of market booms. You can have payment schedules, a tight scope of work, all your systems in place, but you cannot control the human variable. Nobody's going to reinvent the wheel, right? Just learn from others' mistakes, and partner with the right people.
I feel like that's a big problem right now where people are...
They don't want to pay for education.
When you start, you are getting paid to learn.
Exactly.
You're not getting paid to get paid.
I was going to buy it off market. It does have a rolling fine from the city, which means it's an administrative fine, $150 a day from last owner. Can you guess how much that rolling fine has totaled since 2016?
I'm going to say $80,000.
Way low.
300,000?
345,000. I try not to say things that I don't think are going to happen to other people because I want them to hold me accountable. Because it's really easy to just talk a big game and not do crap. A real estate deal will try to kill itself several times throughout the whole deal. What are you going to do to get that done? This is great.
That's for you.
Oh, this is for me?
That's for you.
I love coffee, right?
Yeah, so hey, man, that's for you. The official Al Nicoletti Show t-shirt.
That's awesome.
For you, man.
Awesome.
Hey, there you go. That's a rare merch.
I love it, man. I love it.
It's always a lot of fun watching the recap from last week on the Al Nicoletti Show. It feels like a month ago that Gary was in the studio live. It's hard to believe that was last week. Lots happened in the last week. And if you missed any of that episode with Gary is a big investor in Jacksonville, covering fix and flips and really trying to navigate through this market. And he talked a lot about that on the show. So if you missed any of that, definitely check that out, and all the amazing guests that have been on the Al Nicoletti Show, which is on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play. Oh, somebody found us on iTunes. That was really interesting. Somebody found us on iTunes, and I love that people are finding the show on all the platforms. And you can, of course, find the Al Nicoletti Show on YouTube, which is the video version, and of course, Facebook and the business page, the personal page, and of course, all the micro content constantly dropping on Instagram at Attorney Nicoletti. We're just dropping that left and right every single week. And it's great that we're on a roll. We're not stopping. We're bringing on people all over the country doing amazing things in their real estate business in general, and not even just real estate. Also bringing on people talking about mindset, productivity, you name it. I was at Glenn Friedman's group yesterday. It was an amazing group of people, and somebody was like, talk about the show. And I'm thinking, wait a second, the show's got real estate and we got people that are even outside of that now. It's great. So check it out on all the platforms. I am ready for the show tonight. I can't wait to introduce the guests. We'll go through the whole introduction, but I just got to say it's amazing that we get to bring on guests like Will, and we get to have awesome people watch the show. Like Gio, I love it. Let's go, baby. Awesome seeing you yesterday. And it's just amazing that we get to bring on these people and have everybody in the studio interact. Drop your questions, drop your comments, whether you're listening now live or you catch the show later. Drop your comments in. I'll make sure we do that when we do the whole introduction, but feel free to do that. I never take it. I never absorb the fact that sometimes we are live and it just feels so good. Like we're live and you get to do so many things by commenting and dropping questions. So I'm ready. Let's do this thing. I got my paper, my pen ready. It's 9:00 Wednesday night. We are live. So let's rock this thing. Hey, everybody. My name is Al Nicoletti. I'm an attorney here in Florida, and welcome to the Al Nicoletti Show, where I bring on real estate super investors, rising rock stars, movers and shakers, and leaders of clubs in their communities that educate, entertain, and inspire all things on Florida real estate and bring in the best in the game. That is the idea. We bring the best in the business to bring you the best value, to bring you the best information so you can consistently level up your business. Whether you're in real estate, whether you are in, and maybe you're doing another kind of business. Maybe it's not just real estate, but the tips and tricks that you learn from the show help you elevate and scale your business. Whether you're in Florida, Ohio, California, you name it, all over the country, whether you're in Airbnb, commercial land, you name it, on how you can take your company to the next level. I can't wait to introduce the guest tonight. We are going to have a great live show. For those that are listening on iTunes and Spotify, or you're listening later, make sure you tune in live. We love all the guests and the fans, the followers that tune in live, because we want you to all interact. Ask your questions live. This is like the prime time to find out things that you've always wanted to know. And I love the fact that we have amazing people that consistently watch the show. Gio, Teresa, you name it. We have the big people in the house. So I can't wait to roll. You know, I go through my opening thoughts in the beginning of the episode. And my opening monologue, my opening thoughts are this. I've actually been basically on speaking hiatus. There hasn't been a bunch of speaking events except for Glenn Friedman's group yesterday. And I am now hitting the road again. Hitting the road. I'm going to Houston tomorrow morning, and I'm going to be back in Houston the following week. And then I'm doing a huge West Florida tour. 5 different RIAs, 5 different meetups in less than a week. I just got to say, when it comes to traveling, one thing that is crazy is it's always, there's packing, there's a rush. You want to get through all the emails, all the work. One thing I always remind myself of before traveling is embrace it. Embrace the moment, because travel it's a really interesting time to explore different places. And it's going to be an exciting time to really dive into meeting new people, meeting all these people that are all over the country. So I can't wait to go. It's going to be crazy, even after the show, because we're live, but even after the show, I'm off to Houston tomorrow. So you'll all see the stories, the recaps. It's going to be great. So we are ready for the live episode with Will Denis. I love this guy. It's something to be said about meeting people in a smaller, intimate group. So Will and I are a part of Family Mastermind. And when you go to conferences and masterminds and different events, there's so many people, like 100, 200, 300 different people. And it's so hard to meet every single person. But what was so great is back in November, Matt Andrews had us all have like a mini mastermind. 15 of us just show up. And that was the first time I got to meet Will. And it was great, because that was a great time to actually connect deeper. We got dinner. We got to sit next to each other. I got to hear what's going on, getting great conversations. And I love what he's doing. I love where he's going, because we all had a whole meetup about what everybody's working on in their business. And it's an exciting time for Will, and it's an exciting time for his students and what's coming. So I really wanted him to get on the show to talk about what's going on, talk about so many different things happening. So I'm excited. I can't wait to bring him on. So without further ado, let's welcome him to the show, Will Denis. Will, what is going on, man?
What up? What's going on? I'm excited.
How's everything in South Florida?
Sunny and rainy at the same time, as you know.
Sunny and rainy. I love it. That's Miami and Fort Lauderdale for you.
That's it, baby. It's always something.
Yeah. Well, Will, I'm happy you're here. I think it's great. I love what you're doing. Love what you're working on. And you know, like I was saying, it's when you're in these groups, it's great to have these intimate groups to really find out more about what you're doing, what you're getting into. And we'll dive in some things that you are. But I'm doing a thing on my show where I ask people that come on now what the biggest lesson is that they learned once they got into real estate, or your business for that matter. You know, once you jumped into that business, what did you learn? What was that big aha moment for you?
That honestly, there's so much money out there, and there's so much abundance in the world. I was a corporate America dude. So I was at Merrill Lynch, completely different mindset. I owe entrepreneurs in my family of one form or another, but no one was like extremely standout successful, right? It was always like start one, stop. Now they're on to another one. Now it's this one and whatever. So for me, it was just once I hit my first deal and I got started, it was off to the races for me. It was proof of concept. It was off for me. So I just knew that, okay, if I could do this now and I could do this without knowing close to anything, then what can I do if I actually hone this skill and if I actually build out a business and not a hobby? So that was it for me.
Yeah, build out the business and you're doing it on a high scale, right? Like you've done so many fix and flips, you've done so many wholesale deals, and now you're in that position to be able to convey that knowledge to others and educate and help others when they get these crazy deals. Like you and I have had that talk about how there's all these wild deals that the students seem to find, you seem to find, but your knowledge is helping them overcome that, right? Like your experience behind it, the hundreds of deals that you've done is really helping. So I think that's great. And the other thing I ask is this: is what do you do, or what do you work on daily, weekly, monthly that consistently helps you perform at a high level, high performance, high level, high mental acuity, so that you can really keep churning your business every single day? You're high energy, high powered, go, go, go all the time.
Word. Routine. I have a flawless routine. That's the one word I can give you. I follow my routine to the letter. Even I just came back from Don Costa's mastermind in New Orleans, which is a very difficult city to keep a routine in. But you and I have had discussions off mic where we were both very overweight at one point. We took health we went on our own respective journeys for years to get to where we are now, and why we physically look that way. I believe that in any time, during COVID, because I started in 2017. So during COVID was the big oh shit moment. And I'm sorry, we can't curse on this show. I just did. But
you're good. We've had worse.
Yes. Yeah. So the oh shit me was COVID. But I always say chaos is routine is what keeps you out of chaos. And it's what keeps you going. So when you have a terrible routine or a bad routine, that's where things get worse, especially when the economy gets, when something like a COVID happens or interest rates start rising, accelerated pace. When you have a routine, it goes back to like trusting the process. You know that, some days are going to be good, some days are going to be bad, but your routine follows and you really stay dialed in and honed in. And that's what keeps you going through the tough times, because the difference between discipline and motivation, really.
So routine's really easy when you're in your element every single day, when you're in your environment, your habitat. When you're home, that's like when you can have your best kind of routine, right?
Yeah.
How do you handle when you have to step outside of that? Because when you break your routine is when a little bit more chaos happens. So how do you mentally prepare for that kind of moment?
It's very simple. I do not allow my mind to wander or to do what it wants. I tell my mind what to do. My body follows. That's just what it is. And I don't deviate from that. I mean, I'm human, right? There's some times where, we all get a little, sidetracked, or you have a shiny penny over there. And you're like, oh, let me follow that stupid thing. But I always ask myself, is this a part of my routine? Number one. Number two, is this serving the goals? Is this going to serve the goals that I'm on track for? And if it's no, then it just becomes a mental repetition thing, kind of like working out, right? The more reps you do, the stronger you get, the better you get. You know exactly how you move, how you don't move, where your injuries are, where your weaknesses, your strengths, right? It's the same thing in business. I just think that a lot of people don't put enough emphasis on the brain is an organ, but the brain is also a badass muscle. And the more that you train that brain, the stronger it is when shit hits the fan. And believe me, shit hits the fan daily. So it's just a matter of what are you going to do with it? And I just keep
Yeah.
pushing through. Yeah.
Yeah. And what have you learned from those moments when it does hit the fan? How do you react? And, was it a positive reaction? Was it a negative reaction? Is it something that you would do again in the same situation? Or if it was negative, you're not going to do it again. But, right. I mean, it's learning from those experiences you've been through that will truly help. So I think that's great. Well, let's get into this a little bit about partnerships and what that's been like for you in your business. So we've had a lot of people on the show talk about partnerships or things going on in joint ventures. Maybe it's not full on partnerships, but joint ventures or mini adventures. What are some of the things that you want people to know when it comes to partnerships or best practices, and what to look for in a partner? What to avoid? What things to look out for? Maybe red flags, or do you need a partner? Do you even need to get into this? So elaborate a little bit on that, because I'm sure you've been through the ups, the downs. I'm sure you have your opinion on that, but partnership is something that comes up all the time.
Yeah, so I started my business with a co-founder. So he was my partner. He's now my ex-partner, amicably. But where we started, we didn't. I'll kind of take this as a couple questions, but we were both flat broke. We started at the same spot, and as you elevate, 6 years together almost in a business partnership, and you move from barely doing deals here and there to a multi-million dollar operation, things change, roles change, desires change, motivations change, drive changes, right? One thing I realize is have a very, very clear cut description of whose role is what. If you are going to seek a partner or you feel like you need a partner, ask yourself why. Why do I need a partner? And if the answer is simply, well, because I need money, that's not a good answer. Okay. A partner should complement you. And money, for example, which is the most common one I hear, money rents at a rate. You could get money anywhere. You could get money from lenders. You could get money from JV partners. And I think a common mistake, I know I made it, you can make joint ventures or strategic partnerships for specific things. You don't have to get fully married into that business, right? I got fully married and it's fine. It worked out until it didn't, right? And the second thing that I went through was that along that journey, about 3.5 years into it, 4 years into it, I sold a piece of my business, right, to a third partner that was coming in. And it was for a nice chunk of change. And it was also for banking relationships. But that partnership crashed and burned about a year later because the drive wasn't there. The individual that came in wasn't adding value at all, right? And he wasn't a co-founder. So he didn't go through all the struggles and all the pains and all the growing pains that you go through as a true entrepreneur. So it was very tough to have the mindsets all equal and to say, well, I view you as my equal when all you did was buy in. It's kind of like going to Disney, and if you buy the fast pass, you bought your way to the front of the line, but you didn't wait in the line. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I love the fast, but in the case of my partnership, there wasn't a lot of value there. So when that starts to happen, what occurs is this: you start to harbor, whether it's me or anyone else, different feelings, resentment. There's a lot of bad things that can come from that, and those thoughts they manifest into something physical, and that's where problems can actually start. Because if you feel like, hey, I'm pulling most of this weight, I'm the visionary, I'm the CEO, and I'm doing XYZ, and the workload is clearly going like this, but the compensation is like this, that's a problem waiting to happen. It's going to get tired of it eventually. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, with partnerships, you have to, like you said, you have to complement each other. It can't just be one person doing everything or one person feeling like they're doing everything. For a partnership to work, you have strengths, they have strengths, and they're different from each other. They're different
Correct.
from yours is different from theirs. Like one partner wants to be behind the computer, wants to do all the accounting all the time. The other wants to be the face and be the marketer and just be out there, right?
Right.
Maybe the one behind the desk is the visionary. But I've just seen many times where that clashes, right? Both want to be out in the front, or both want to be behind. Nobody wants to be out in the front, and that doesn't work because then nobody's out there pushing the name or pushing the marketing. So,
Correct.
like you said, the compliment part is really interesting. And what would you say? What would you say have been some attributes, like maybe bring it into you, for example, your attributes on what you're good at and what you would look for on the opposite end?
Yeah. So in my partnership originally, right, the co-founder and myself, I was the visionary. I still am the visionary of my company. I'm a hell of a driver. I could work 25 hours in a day, wouldn't bat an eye. That's okay for me. Just an example. I'm not like a big sports guy, right? I'm not out there doing fantasy football leagues. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I attribute my time. Like I do have downtime and free time, but I'm obsessed with what I do. So most of the time, I mean, you can either catch me on a mastermind or learning something new or building a new relationship or traveling somewhere to get some value from something, right? Et cetera, et cetera. Like things like this on a Wednesday night. I
Yep.
think that says a lot about an individual. Certainly says a lot about you, right? We could be doing a ton of other stuff with our time, like chilling and watching Netflix, but we're not. And that comes from a deep desire to just produce and progress and progress and progress. So, one thing I did that I knew very early on was, look, I'm not an ops guy. Naturally, I understand ops, meaning operations and all that stuff, but that's not my forte. If you put me to design, I'm gonna burn out, and I'm gonna go somewhere else. I'm not necessarily the best sales guy, but I'm pretty good at it, and I did it for years and years to scale my company. But I am a really big thinker, and I'm the guy that, from my experiences with people, when shit hits the fan, people usually turn and they look at somebody. I'm usually the guy that they're looking towards, and they're like, "All right, so what the hell are we gonna do?" I don't know why that is. It's just how it is. So for a long time, I'm to carrying that. Maybe it was my upbringing. I don't know, but I'm accustomed to carrying that. So I was looking for somebody that could do more, hey, the ground and pound kind of stuff, right? So I could focus on the back end. So I could focus on the marketing. I'm a data guy. That's why they call me Willie Numbers. I'm a number guy. He wasn't good at that. He didn't understand it. He couldn't read P&L to save his life, right?
Mhm.
And that's all right. But I could. That's the world that I came from. So he knew he needed me and I needed him. Where the despair started to come from, and I wasn't perfect in the partnership either, but where the disparity started to come from was I was obviously continuing my education. I was obviously adding a shit ton of value towards the business and pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. And he wasn't driving it from the same place anymore. So that's where we started to have an issue partnership wise.
And so you were constantly educating yourself on how
Yeah.
to better the business or better yourself or better the whole company as a total, as a whole
Mhm.
package. But
Sure.
then the other one wasn't doing that, right? So
Right.
let's talk about continuing education. So yesterday I talked about this at Glenn Friedman's group that I was at yesterday. And I mentioned the part about it's so important to continually educate yourself so you learn, because things change. You have to adapt to the markets. You have to adapt to fluctuations, or maybe one side of the business, maybe the fix and flips is not hitting it right now, and maybe the wholesale is, or maybe there's something else that's working that's different from what you were working on before. What do you do to continually educate yourself so you're at the top of the game, you're ahead of the game, you're ahead of the curve, so that you're beating the competition?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a lot of things that I do. I like to take a multiple prong approach, but what I've been doing for the last 5+ years is pretty simple when you break it down. I'm a part of a few masterminds. I'm not a part of 10 masterminds because I think that's too much. I'm a part of 3. all right, that I'm really involved in, I'm really invested in, and I gain a lot of value, and I feel that I serve it well, and it serves me well. So that's number one. So paying to play, if you will. Surrounding, I want to be in the room where I feel the dumbest. That's definitely the right room to be in, right? It doesn't make me dumb. It just makes other people where I want to go, right? They're already there, or they're close and they're just a little bit ahead. That's the kind of room that you should want to be in. Number one. Number two, I'm consistently reading books. Whether it be when I was, early on in my career, I picked up Traction, then it was Empire, hiring consultants like Gary Harper from Sharper, right? Things like that. So I have, there's budgets that I set in my life for certain things like fun and this and that and whatever, but I don't have a discretionary budget for education. Continuing education has virtually an unlimited budget for me. Anytime that I can choose to learn a new skill or get better at something, or for example, now I'm in the education game as well, that's a totally different business model. That's a totally different business in and of itself. I could wholesale 100 houses a year standing on my head. I've mastered that. Great. When I got to the education business, it was top of the totem pole, bottom of the totem pole. Now I got to learn all this new stuff. Now I got to learn what the hell a ClickFunnels is. What is marketing for here? And what's the BDUs and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my God. But I'm excited because I'm like, man, this is a whole new challenge. This is a whole new set of KPIs. And I know how I function, which is really well being challenged very high level. So anytime I feel myself in my life, this is just a good rule of thumb for anybody listening. But anytime I ever feel myself in my life getting comfortable or complacent, I know I'm like, okay, I'm coming up on the limit here. We've probably reached the limit in what I learned or what I needed to learn here. It's time for a new challenge, and it's time to push it. Clearly, I'm going a little soft. I need to bump it up now. Now we need to expand that threshold and raise that ceiling now. And that's something that, again, the brain is a muscle. I firmly believe that, right? Might not be biologically, but to me, it's a muscle. And I consistently do that. If you went to the gym, for example, and you lifted the same weight for 2 years, you're probably not going to get bigger. It's just a fact, right? Your muscle, the body and the mind become very, very accustomed, and they adapt very well in a positive way and in a negative way. It's easy for humans to get complacent. Very, very easy. I've seen it happen with friends around me that $1 million a year, turns out they get to 400 grand. That's all they wanted to make because they don't push it past there. They get comfortable there. And again, right. No right or wrong, but I haven't hit that threshold for myself. So every day I wake up, my hair's on fire in a good way, and I'm looking to fucking push it harder and harder and harder. But again, also with that being said, I'm 32 now. I've been in business for almost 7 years right now. I've gotten enough brain damage where I'm like, hey, dude, you're never going to figure it all out. I don't want to be the expert in everything. I don't want to be the jack of all trades. Who is the expert in this? Where can I go hire them? How can I strategically partner with them so I can get to our goals faster?
Right.
I think that's an ego thing where a lot of people, I know I've been guilty of it, where I'm like, oh, no, I need to do everything and no one can do anything as good as I can do it. Bullshit. Yeah. My sales guys kick my ass any day of the week. Now I train them from time to time, but they're better at that than I am. Yeah. Couldn't fill my shoes for a day, but that's why we're symbiotic. You understand?
Yeah. I think we talked about this at dinner, but Lee Carney's also a big proponent of that as well, about you don't have to, don't do it all yourself, but literally talks about this. Like when he does deals, he has his one closing office. He has his attorney to help with this, an attorney to help with this. Like he goes to certain specific expert people for those areas, not trying to handle it himself or have one person handle it in total, but being able to build out that team. And I feel like that definitely leads to scaling and getting into a business, because without putting the team members around you, you are not going to keep elevating yourself, right? But like you said, with education and continuing to educate yourself, when you start feeling comfortable and you start feeling complacent, that is the indicator of stunted growth, right?
100%.
You're here. And until you start getting uncomfortable and getting outside that element, then you'll go here. Right.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I agree with that 1,000%. I think that's something that you and I both agree on. We've talked about that before, about you have to be able to get outside that world. So let's
sorry, but like the last little point, whenever, I'm sure you can agree with this, but whenever I feel discomfort or uncomfortable, whether it be in a room that I'm in or a new setting or a new skill set or a new type of deal that I'm doing, I know that I'm onto something good. That's just layman's terms, rule of thumb. That's what I use. And I follow my gut a lot.
Yeah, because you just know it. You know that it's going to lead somewhere that you're going to expand your mind. You're going to meet new people. You're going to have different conversations, and that conversation may lead to a brand new idea that you didn't have before. And then you never know; those people could be mini partners or JV people. You know, you just don't know, right? Or maybe it's not even
100%.
just people, but exploring a new topic, or like you did. You're in the education space. You weren't there before. You're like, I don't know anything going on here. I'm going to jump right into it and learn from scratch. And now you're leveling up. So I think that's great. Before we go on to scaling business, I love that David, the great David Olds, is watching. David's on. Mark Monroe's on. He says, "What's going on, gentlemen? Great content as always." Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
It's great to see you guys on. This is great. I got to say, when it comes to scaling and growing your business beyond one employee or two employees, or maybe now have multiple businesses, you brought up a great point before, which is being able to start strategically building the team around you to grow. You go to this person for this task. You go to this contractor for this kind of task on the fix and flip. Maybe you go to this realtor that can help list a fix and flip, but another realtor is helping list a land deal. Building a team and scaling a business takes a lot of time, but what kind of value or information do you have out there to help people when they've hit that point in their business? They're getting the leads in, they're rocking and rolling, but now they want to grow it.
Yeah. So you mean like on the education side, or like tips to scale my own company?
Own company, education side. I mean, all of it in general, because it's still a business.
So again, having clear-cut roles, seats, departments, responsibilities, and accountability for those people within those buckets, within those seats, within those departments. So that's number one. You cannot, and I cannot stress this enough, you cannot scale chaos. You can't. You just can't do it. It's not doable, and you're probably going to burn yourself out. That's a very easy way to blow your engine there. Okay. So that's number one. A lot of the times when you have anxiety in your life or in a business and you feel like you're doing this all the time, it's because there's no clarity. You've never actually sat down, labeled out your business. Where is it going? Where are you right now? Who's in it or not? If you're a one-man or two-man band like I was. Okay, now how do we add those pieces, and who's going to be the pieces that we're going to add? And okay, now we need to build out SOPs, standard operating procedures, around those individuals, around those departments that communicate with one another so that the business can flow. And that's really, it's unsexy. Honestly, it's really boring, but it's so necessary to do in order to actually scale your operation. So when a student comes to me, and they come from all walks of life. I have the students that come zero, like, hey, I've never done a deal. I don't know what wholesaling is. I don't know anything. I want to get my first deal. That's a totally different conversation. That's effort, consistency, and know-how. You need the knowledge. You need the effort. You need to put up the effort for a consistent amount of time. Results will follow. That's easy. Cool. Then I have students that are like, all right, listen, I'm doing 1 to 3 deals a month, but I'll have a month where I do 5 deals, and then I'll have 2 months where I do no deals. Okay. So then I look at them and I say, okay, well, in these 2 months, leading up to those 2 months, what didn't you do and what did you do? Because all that tells me from experience is something between here and there changed in terms of effort, in terms of marketing, in terms of output and input, where the results in business always lag. So it might be a 60-day delay. So if you're dropping marketing and you're stopping, for example, in January of the year, by March, April, you're going to have a problem, if not sooner. And then you're going to be wondering and you're going to start blaming everything. Like, oh, well, what happened? Just check your KPIs. If you're not tracking your KPIs, that's part of the problem right there. So your key performance indicators, they're there for a reason, right? Drive a car redlining it all the time. Eventually, the engine will blow up. At the same time, you can't drive the car at 1,000 RPM because you're not going to get very far. So it's fluctuating and finding where that sweet spot is, and then adding pieces to that to have a consistent business. So if you want a consistent business and you want to scale and you want to operate at that level, you need to delegate. Okay, you need to actually train people. You need to hire people correctly, put them through predictive, etc., or DISC, or whichever one of these 10 tests you want to use, and figure out who's the right person for that role. Another common mistake I see, I committed it a lot in my business. I would get frustrated with a member of my team or an employee, and I'd be like, why aren't you doing this? If I would have tested them, and if I would have actually looked at who that wasn't a bad person, wasn't the wrong person, it was the right person in the wrong seat. That's a fact. You can't put a Formula One driver in a Corolla. How fast do you think he's going to go, right? At the same token, you can't put me or you in one car because we're going to wreck it on the first turn. We don't know what we're doing, right? It doesn't make us bad people. It doesn't make us bad drivers. It just makes us not in the right seat because we don't have the experience yet. So again, those are things, and I know I said a lot on that topic, but these are all kind of, I'm trying to give as much as I can in a condensed time, but all these things matter for scale. And by the way, to scale up, not down, because we can talk about that too. That's a totally different skill set. But
I saw that. Yep.
Yeah, to scale up, right? You need to be okay with the next 6 months or so, maybe 9 months, maybe 12 months, being a little bit tumultuous. Okay, it's gonna happen. You're gonna have to put up some money. You're gonna have to put up some sweat. You're gonna have to go through some hires, some fires, etc., until you get it right. And you're consistently tweaking. Especially, I would also recommend don't do any major change, like 5 major changes at the same time. Try to address one department at a time. That's a common mistake that I used to make too. Be like, listen, we're gonna increase marketing 200%. We're gonna hire 3 reps at the same time. We're also going to choose 2 different markets to be in. And by the way, we're going to learn novations and sub-2s all in the same month. Dude, it was a disaster. It was a disaster. It was a disaster. And it wasn't anything more than taking on too much at the same time.
Yeah. And I think one of the challenges that I've even seen business-wise is the training part is really hard, right? Because you know everything about that role. You could do it with your eyes closed. You could do it with the lights off. You know how to do that role. The hard part is then you bring someone on and they're capable of doing it, but it's the time that now you have to take, and that's time away from other things that you're trying to do to keep you going and to keep payroll, expenses, to keep all that flowing in the firm. And it's hard. It's a challenge. It's doable, but it takes time. It takes patience, and it takes that kind of skill set to be able to constantly point out in the way that they can learn it. So they'll see what's going on. All right, this is the change. Next time you make that change, right? So training, like you said, that's in order to scale, I believe you really have to find that time to train. The other thing that you talked about is scaling, no chaos, right? There can't be any chaos with scaling. So what I've realized was maybe 9 months ago, it was really chaotic for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, calls all the time, all different spots, can't happen anymore.
We had that conversation, remember, at Jacksonville, where you actually spoke up. That was one of the first times we met. And then you were like, dude, I'm in 37 RIAs in 25 days, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing probates in 16 dates, and you won't believe it. I got a probate going in Alaska, just flew to Texas. I'm back in Jacksonville. I'm being facetious, but seriously, we're like really all over the place, and that's all right. But I'm like, dude, maybe just dial into Florida, because it's like a pretty big state.
Oh yeah. Well, no, we all came to that conclusion, but like what was going on was just there was no uniformity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the last 2-3 months, it's been very uniform. Things on the calendar, things scheduled. This one's handling this. This one's handling this. Having conversations about what roles people have. I just thought that was another point about, to be able to scale, there just can't be chaos. You have to have defined roles, like you said, Will. The people are defined in what they're capable of, what they're doing. And I think like you're saying too, is sometimes you have the right person, but in the wrong role.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you have the wrong person, period, and you got to figure that out as well. So
that's an easy one.
Yeah, that's an easy one.
Yeah.
But I think all these great points you made, I mean, of course, we could go on for hours about different attributes and different things to scale. But the other thing we haven't talked about is scaling down.
Yeah.
Is that winding down a business? Is that stopping the business? Is that exiting the business? Maybe more like exit strategies?
Yeah. So what I meant by that was, I mean, it can mean all of the above, by the way, that you just said. So what I meant by that is that I had 3 partners. Then we bought out the second or the third. Then there was 2, and then I bought out that one and by myself. So which I've never been happier, right? Because I have full control. I can make better decisions, and I don't have to have the worry and the anxiety that I was going through, right? With the delegation and the roles and value and how much time I'm putting in, how much time they're not, whatever, and all that. So what happened was we scaled up very, very hard. We scaled up to 7.3 mil in the year. And then, we had a $5 million year the year before that. So we were cranking, right? 150 plus deals, that stuff. Then we scaled down on the first business, or the first business divorce, really, the partnership split. That was scaling down. Then we got rid of a couple personnel, because at the same time we realized, like, oh shit, we were running a little bit inefficiently, but it didn't really matter. That's why good times, what is it? A big tide raises all boats, I think is the expression. I don't know. Maybe I'm messing.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard.
I'm probably saying it wrong. But anyway, like a high tide raises all boats, right? Everybody looks like a genius. The last 2 years, everybody looked like a stud, right? Because the market was just so hot. So we couldn't see the reality of what was surface, which was we were making a lot of money, doing a lot of deals, but we were also spending a lot of money. So scaling down that is one thing that nobody really talks about. It's very rare, where it's like, okay, you hit then you have stuff happen, whatever that is, partnership splits, the economy shifts, etc. What do you do now? Because now you're trimming fat, you're trimming personnel, you're coming down, you're getting rid of a partner, you're getting rid of another one. Where do you end up? And okay, where do you go from there? And how do you rebuild that? So I scaled down, and now I'm scaling back up. But this time around, I'm scaling super efficient, super lean, still run a multi-million-dollar a year company with 4 people. I was running a $7 million a year company with 21. It riddled me that, But that goes back to efficiencies. That goes back to systems. That goes back to processes. That goes back to delegation. That goes back to all of that. And go back up. You want to be frugal, and of course you're going to spend more naturally to make more line. But there is a certain diminishing return, where at what point are we spending too much to make this much? Because it doesn't make any more sense. Because 300% over here is the same as 300% over here. The numbers just change. There's just more zeros.
Yeah. So you're not getting totally out of the business. You're just trying to trim the fat, or trim based upon the market conditions and what's needed to keep the business alive, or to keep what you're trying to do or your objectives afloat, which is
right.
This is what we got to do. It is what it is. If you got to either cut the employees or cut expenses or trim marketing down, maybe because your marketing is blowing everything up, maybe you got to cool that part down. So it's I don't know. Who knows what it is? But the idea is that it's funny. Everybody talks about scaling a business up. We've never had anybody talk about scaling a business down. And that's
Yep.
and that's great. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
We got people watching. Will, I love it. Juan Gomez. Juan, what's up, man? I love it. He goes, guys are dropping golden nuggets. You know, we love dropping golden nuggets and value for you all. We want you all to learn. We want you all to gather this stuff because we want to see you succeed, right? That's the whole idea with the show and bringing people on like Will. Like, Will's doing $1 million in transactions, hundreds of deals, teaching people, teaching students. That's the idea, is that we learn all together. And I love that you're watching. I hope Jimmy's there. No, he's probably in the room making reels. I love seeing those reels drop with Jimmy. So Will, let's talk about the education part, the Spanish education, because I know you brought a point about that. What's happening in that world? Because I think I can't remember if it was Esteban or somebody. I definitely know it was you at the mini mastermind, but the education to the Spanish community seems to be a thing growing a lot of traction, obviously in Miami or South Florida. But let's talk about that. What are you seeing? What are you helping others with when it comes to Spanish education?
Yeah. So again, I got into the education business as I was, this is over a year ago. I was going to exit my company, okay, because the whole partnership situation had gotten to a point where I'm like, all right, you know what? Maybe it's just time. I made a good amount of money. Let me just exit, revamp my life. Let's see what, I knew I could build out a company again very quickly. But a buddy of mine asked me to actually speak at a live event in Miami, and it was like 250 people there. He's like, hey, can you talk about system, scale, and just processes? And I was like, sure, no problem. And nobody knew who the hell I was because I was social media and everything like that. But I had been running one of the biggest businesses in South Florida. So when I went there and I spoke, after I got off stage, obviously you get mobbed, you get asked a bunch of questions. I noticed that a lot of people had accents in like a Spanish accent. So I don't look like I speak Spanish. So automatically I switched to Spanish, my first language. And people were like enamored and they're like, oh shit, I had no idea. And I'm like, yeah, no, Spanish is my first language. So, and I've been conducting my business in South Florida, I would say 40% of the time for the last 6 years in bilingual, right? So obviously education anyway in the English side. I decided to really make a strong emphasis and focus on the Spanish side too. It is a grossly underserved community. I don't know why it hasn't even happened yet, but I'm proud to say that I'm one of the front runners of it for sure. It is team. So what I'm doing now is live events, webinars, and we're ramping this up significantly now, putting a lot of marketing behind it, putting a lot of content behind it, putting a lot of organic and inorganic traffic behind it. And I'm actually just showing up and I'm giving a lot of my time. I'm giving a lot of that in Spanish to teach people how to do the wholesale business, but 100% taught with materials in Spanish. Even if English is your second language and you speak it fairly well, you're definitely going to dominate it and really understand it. You're probably not retaining 100% of that information in English. But what if you had it in Spanish? You blow the lid off. And, it's also a great market. There's a lot of money in the Hispanic community, right? People that want to park money in deals, people that want to flip, people that are running away from countries that they just want their money to be here. So that's something that I'm helping a lot of people with. And we're growing a pretty good big community here in South Florida for the Hispanic community. And I also teach in English as well. So what happens is it's pretty interesting. I think it's the first demographic that's happened with, where a lot of people are doing the business, but they're bilingual. So naturally in South Florida and across America, people speak both languages. So they kind of gravitate to both, where they're like, dude, I could be in this room or I could be in that room. That's great. Like I can learn it in both languages because they're already conducting. There's a lot of sellers that if you don't speak Spanish, you can't speak to them. There's no way to get the deal. Yeah. So a bilingual person can come along and really do a great job. So that's what we're doing.
So what it seems like is that even with the investors or even with the realtors or people that want to get into buying properties, it seems that, yes, they speak English, but the Spanish education side to it seems to resonate differently. Are you seeing just more of a,
yeah.
What would you call that? Would you just say like
It's cultural. It's cultural.
relatability?
Yeah, it's relatability and it's cultural. I think a really good friend of mine is Max Maxwell. I'm sure a lot of people here know it. Dude, he knocked it out of the park with the African American community, right? The education was being taught before, but there wasn't a relatable person say, hey, I'm here. I look like you. Let's roll. We both come from the same backgrounds. So they blew it out of the park because everybody flocked to him and we're like, oh, shit.
Right.
It's one of us. We can relate to this person. And with Hispanics, it's very similar. It's definitely a cultural thing.
How would you suggest to investors on how to be more relatable? Maybe it's using their language, but how to be more relatable to the Spanish community. So you have Spanish investors and Spanish sellers. Is it just starting off in Spanish? Is it starting off and communicating it in that language, or is it? I mean, what would you say? How do you increase that relatability so that maybe you pick up more deals?
Yeah, I mean, if you notice that somebody has an accent, this is how I've always done it. I mean, there's certain times where it's just going to be blatant, where the person's like, no hablo inglés. That's pretty clear. You're like, got it, Spanish, got it, right? Or you're going to hang up the phone because you don't know how to speak Spanish. If you see that a seller is having difficulty or they're not really understanding you, you can kind of hear an accent and you speak Spanish. It's just something as simple. Excuse me, do you speak Spanish? Like ask them in Spanish. And if you normally that react like, oh yeah, I do. And now it's like, boom, trust barriers down. Now we're going into Spanish mode. Your rapport just went from a 1 to like a 90, just naturally, because it is relatability. Like, look, Tony Robbins always says, people like themselves. One of the best training tactics that Chris Voss, the hostage negotiator, always says is mirroring. Mirroring is that is a great example of that. If I'm watching you do this a lot of the time, guess what I'm doing? I am nodding too, right? If I notice that you're very vociferous and you're loud and this, I'm probably going to be up there. If I'm docile, you're probably going to want to duplicate me on the docile side, right? If we're trying to make a transaction happen. So I think that the same with cultural things for sure. And there's a certain trust factor you can't duplicate there.
Right. I get that. I think that's a really interesting point for those that can speak Spanish to the Spanish community and being able to have more relatability. I think that's great.
It's a huge competitive advantage. Yeah.
Yeah. Huge. Juan asked a great question. He goes, Will, what marketing channels do you focus on? And which channels do you feel like you need more of, less of a team?
Okay, so the first question is direct mail, cold calling, and texting. Those are the three that I really hone in on. PPC and a lot of others, but those are the three that over the last 5+ years have historically produced me millions of dollars. The ones that you need more or less of a team, I don't really think you need a team for any of them. It just, the question now becomes, how much bandwidth do you have and how much marketing are you going to do? Because one person, you could probably mail out 30,000 postcards in a month, 40,000 if you're really busting your ass, but you can't mail 100,000 postcards in a month with one person, right? So that's a bandwidth issue. That's no longer less of a team. So I would say that cold calling and texting, if you're a one-man band, you can pretty yourself. You don't really need a team. You can have like a VA, as far as like an executive assistant VA that can handle a lot of the admin tasks and tee you up to really only be dealing with sellers that are, higher chance of converting. So just focusing on revenue generating activities there.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, anything helps everybody out there. I mean, that's what's working for you, right, Will? That's what's working.
Yeah.
So you go with it. You learn from the best in the business. So, Will, I got to ask, so is there anything crazy, hot topic, hot trend wise that you're seeing in the market, maybe in the last week, a buzzword, something that you're just like, everybody keeps talking about this right now? Watch it be like ChatGTP or AI. Well, if it is, it is. But like, what are you seeing market wise or anything that's taken off that you're like, this is huge?
Well, look, ChatGPT. I think that was. It's not my answer, by the way, but I think it was a few months ago already. The first time I saw it, I was like, oh shit, this is really cool. This is definitely gonna disrupt a lot of stuff. But that's not it. I would say, like, specific to our business, I think novations are really starting to pick up steam. And I've been doing them for about 2 years. I learned it from my boy Eric Brewer. Love that dude, such a giver. And he, in my opinion, is the best to do novations, period. But novations is, I feel for sure, and I've seen a lot more of that. I'm doing a lot more novations myself. My students are doing more novations. So I think novations is definitely something to keep your eye on, and they're not going away. A lot of people don't know how to do them. And if they do know how to do them, they don't know how to do it well. So the better you could become at that, I guarantee you, if you have a CRM right now with a lot of dead leads, you can convert a lot of them. And it's a strategy which is really interesting. This is why I love it the most. You do not have more marketing to do more novation deals. You just have to reframe the conversation with what you already have. So you don't need to go out and generate more leads. They're already in your CRM. You just need to repivot that conversation.
Yeah, that novations keeps coming up. Everybody keeps mentioning that. That's a buzzword. We've heard it over and over.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's like wholesaling with disclosures, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know. That just makes sense to me. Every time I hear about novations, it's just it's a wholesaling with disclosure. But
I call it a long wholesale, but
a what kind
that's
of
what I call it.
wholesale?
A long
A
That's what I
long
call it.
wholesale. Yeah, yeah. Get top dollar for that
Yeah.
wholesale. But
Exactly.
that's great. If that's what's working, that's hot. I hope that helps everybody out there in getting into stuff. And I love it. Teresa, I just saw her comment from before. She said, serving the Spanish community. That is freaking awesome, Will. So you see,
Appreciate it.
it doesn't matter if they're here in Florida or they're in another state, California, or wherever they are. It still impacts the audience and impacts their abilities and what they can learn from people like you, Will. So it's great. I'm glad I had you on. I'm so
Thank you.
glad that we were able to connect when we did. I see you in family in Tampa,
Yeah.
and it's great. So,
I love
Will,
seeing you, brother. Anytime.
thanks, man. No, we always have a great energy, great conversations. There's
Yeah.
always stuff going on we get into. I love it, man.
Absolutely.
Will, as I do with all my guests on the Al Nicoletti Show, we get to the end and I do a segment called Final Words, Final Thoughts. Anything that is something that you really want to say that makes a point, makes impact. Maybe it's something that you're working on. Maybe it's a market prediction. Maybe it has to do with your students or in your education journey. Anything that you could provide as that final say to what you're doing. So, as I say, final words, final thoughts, Will Denis.
I'm helping my community right now in South Florida, and my goal is to empower as many new entrepreneurs and even existing entrepreneurs how to scale successfully and efficiently. So, if you want to follow me and you want to get out there or you want to DM me, I'm actually notorious for actually answering my DMs, and I give out a ton of free content and a ton of free value. So, I'm putting out like 3 reels a day, just because I'm like a little content machine now. So and I know you are too. So who am I talking to? But yeah, man, my final thoughts are just follow people that are actually doing and practicing what they preach. No gurus. I'm actually a guru. I close deals every single month. And I actually keep up with the times because I'm actually doing it. So just make sure that you follow the right people. That's what I could say.
Yeah, that's great. And how can everybody find you on Instagram, Facebook, you name it?
Willie Numbers, right there. WILLY, the word numbers, plural. I'm on Instagram, TikTok. I even have a fax machine. No, I'm kidding. Uh, so yeah, I'm on all the social media platforms. Instagram is my heaviest one. I love it very much, but I try to put out fun stuff too. And dude, I don't hold anything back. And then every day, weekdays at 5 p.m., I do something called Live at 5, which is an IG live. And then at 5, it's about 15 minutes. I'll talk about anything. I'll answer any questions, or I'll just shoot the shit there or some stuff that happened to me that day in my business. And then at 5:15, I do a Spanish Live at 5 as well.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Oh, I
Yeah.
bet people would want to tune into that because that's a great idea for people out there just to see like how does it relate? Does it bring a different audience, different viewers to come on, and everybody's like typing in Spanish? So I
It
love it.
does. Yeah, it does. It's really
Yeah,
cool. Yeah.
yeah. I love the fax machine. That's the secret to scaling, right? Having the fax machine.
Yeah, I got it right here. It's crazy.
I
Big
love it.
ass machine. It's next to
People
my
still
Game
ask.
Boy.
Yeah, people still ask me. They're like, "Do you have a fax machine? We have like papers we need." I'm like, "Fax? We got scan. I got my iPhone. I'll scan it to you." So that's awesome.
Yeah,
Man.
that's like when people like are like, "Hey, can I send you a check? Can I cut you a check?" I'm like, "No, you can hop on your computer and there's a great revolutionary thing called a wire transfer, and you can wire it." That's what you can do.
Yeah, yeah. Will, it's always great seeing you, man. I
You,
love
man.
seeing your family. I love seeing you at the mini meetups. I'll probably see you in July. Hopefully, if
Absolutely.
you're able to make it up for
I'll be
that
there.
one. But Will, I love it. Thank you so much for coming on. I will see you soon. It was a blast. You dropped tons of information for people. So
Thank you, brother.
can't wait to see you soon, man.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Of course, anytime, brother. You take care. All right, everybody, another episode on the Al Nicoletti Show. Will Denis dropping nuggets on partnerships, scaling a business, up a business, scaling down a business. See, that's great, right? When we can bring people on that aren't just talking about how you keep scaling up the business, but things that you got to do just in case the market changes and what you do in those circumstances, how you can trim the fat and change it up as you go. And just getting into some of the things with the Spanish education, right? Being able to find that relatability factor with the sellers, with the local investors or investors that you're with, and being able to have that relatability is huge in a market. So if you missed any of this episode, go back, check it out, go back to the beginning, or maybe you jumped halfway and you saw the beginning and you didn't see the end. Make sure you check it out. Of course, you can find all the content on the Al Nicoletti Show on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and of course on iTunes. You'll find it there. Yep, connect. I don't know if anybody's scan the QR code. If you're still on, scan the QR code. We love seeing when the QR code thing goes off. But you can find all the content that's on there, and of course on Facebook, Instagram at Attorney Nicoletti. I can't wait to see you all, and I love this. Wait, before I end this, it's so great seeing people comment. I mean, Juan, we love this. That's what we want. Where's Jimmy? We need Jimmy commenting too. We love it when we have guests come on and the fans are dropping comments. Teresa, as always, love it. It's just so nice. And then having Mark come in and David, past guests on the show, come in and drop comments, and seeing Coach Gio, it's just great. So we always want you to come on. We always invite you to drop a comment, ask your questions, anything that you want. That's what's great about the live show. So I can't wait to see you all next Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern. We're live. Tune in then. I'll see you all next week. It's going to be a crazy journey, traveling all over the country all over again. So I'll see you next week. Take care.